Welcome to week 2. This will be an overview of what we're going to do this week. As per usual, we will have some readings, some recorded lectures, some additional material, as well as a couple of assignments due. So we'll start with the readings. This week we'll be looking at chapters 5 through 10. As mentioned, the first couple weeks will be heavy up on our reading in the text. There's also some PowerPoints that accompany the text in this week's modules. And then there are also some lecture material with a heavy focus on photojournalism, which will accompany our first assignment, our news story plus photos. And then lastly, there is some additional material available in the module, which covers a host of materials. So this week's readings really focus on reinforcing concepts that were talked about in COM 300 and also in the textbook relating to quotations and attributions. Last week we looked at the basics of journalism. We talked a little bit about leads. This week will be more of a focus on leads. So we're really, again, focusing on the nuts and bolts of journalism, particularly print journalism, as that's going to be our first story. So to keep in mind, we want to think about the importance of a good and engaging headline, as journalism not only informs people, but we also have to bring people in. It is a profit-driven venture for the most part in our journalistic environment. And so we are in an attention economy where we're trying to engage readers with compelling headlines. Once we get them in, we have to have an interesting lead. And also we have to think about quotations and attributions. And so this week is a good review of those concepts. Also, which we'll get into in more detail next week, we'll talk a bit in brief about interviews. What do we think about when we do journalistic interviews? What are the main components? Well, certainly we start with doing research, crafting, finding out about our subject, crafting interesting questions, being active listeners during the interview process, and then making sure that the end product of our interview is to get a good quote. One thing that's unique to this assignment is photos. If you look at most print journalism today, it contains both photos and more likely a video clip. What are the function of photos in journalism, and how should we incorporate them? Well, they should be part of the story. They should fit into the seamless flow of the narrative. They should be captioned so that the readers know what you're looking at. But more importantly, they should add something to the story. So that's the focus of this week's readings. In terms of assignments, we have our first quiz, which is due next Sunday. And we also have our first story, which most of you have given pitches for last week. So please look over the directions in Canvas, and if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. See you next week.